When you first find out that the earth isn't what we've been told, it's really mind-blowing, but almost instantly you start wondering where it is that the firmament reaches the earth, how much land is actually out there, and you have all of these things you're trying to figure out. And I was looking in some of the lost books. One of them is the fourth book of Ezra, and I found something interesting about how much land is actually a part of the earth that we know of today. Whenever we see pictures of it, we're told it is a blue marble. It's mostly water, this earth. It's over 70% water. They repeat that blue marble line all of the time, and it's just what we picture. Some place that we live on being mostly water. And the known world that we know of, that's true from what we can tell. It's mostly water. And I was reading something though, and it was talking about creation. It said, upon the third day you did command that the water should be gathered in the seventh part of the earth. 6 parts have you dried up, and kept them to the intent that some of these, being planted of Elohim and tilled, might serve you. And upon the 5th day you said unto the 7th part, where the waters were gathered, that it should bring forth living creatures, fowls, and fish. And so it came to pass. To me, this is telling me that the part of the earth that's water is just one of 7 parts. That the earth is divided into 7 parts. I thought that was interesting because we don't see it that way. And when I was going back and reading Jubilees, or actually my wife was reading it and I was listening, I heard her say something. It caught my attention because it lined up with that. And Jubilees, if you don't know, is actually part of the Bible, one of the canonized texts, and it was removed for some rather strange purposes. I'll go over that later. But Jubilees is a lot like Genesis, but it gives, in my opinion, a lot more detail about some things that do with dates, how calendars work according to the Bible, how heavenly time is different than earthly time, and it puts out some things that are quite mind-blowing. And it shows you how we measure time, or how we're supposed to measure time. And it was given to Moses so that he would understand things and the feasts and all that. So Jubilees is like a little Genesis, I believe is what they call it. But in chapter 5, when they're talking about the flood, it says, and Yahuwah opened 7 floodgates of heaven, and the mouths of the fountains of the great deep, 7 mouths in number, and the floodgates began to pour down water from the heaven 40 days and 40 nights. But when I heard the word 7, it reminded me of the 7 parts of the earth. If you're flooding the entire earth and it's divided into 7 parts, it would make sense to have 7 floodgates. It would also make sense to have 7 mouths or fountains of the deep. Okay? So it goes on to say, and the fountains of the deep also sent up waters until the whole world was full of water, and the waters increased upon the earth. 15 cubits did the waters rise above all the high mountains. So like I'm saying, it gives details. That's really cool. It gives you a visual. 15 cubits. That's something we could measure. That's how high the water was above the highest mountains, or above the high mountains. It doesn't say highest. It just says above all the high mountains. And the ark was lifted up on the earth, and it moved upon the face of the waters. And the ark went and rested on the top of Lubar, one of the mountains of Ararat. And on the new moon, in the 4th month, the fountains of the great deep were closed, and the floodgates of heaven were restrained. And on the new moon of the 7th month, all the mouths of the abysses of the earth were opened, and the water began to descend into the deep below. So the water started going back. Now, I was talking to UAP on his channel about this the other day, because I was blown away by it. I just found it right before I talked to him. And this may be why there's a lot of things we're finding that are below sea level. These were structures that existed possibly pre-flood, and now there's more water on the earth than there was back then. So there may not be as much land. I don't know. All of the waters could have went down and descended back below. I really don't know. But this to me is mind-blowing, that it actually gives an exact mountain It actually gives you an exact height of the water, or depth, I guess you would say, of the water, which would be its height above the mountains. So lots of really detailed things that paint a more full picture of what our Earth actually is, how big it is, how many parts it's divided into, and it's 7 parts. And it's hard for me to imagine what I used to imagine. And when I think back about it and I thought about the flood, I would picture it rising above mountains, but I never really pictured it on a globe. I know that sounds strange. I believed in the globe back then, but I never pictured a ball covered entirely with water and how that would look, and where these floodgates were opened, which part of the ball were they hitting as it wrapped around it. I never thought about that, and now when I think about it, it just seems almost impossible and not realistic. But not to insult anyone who believes in that. I don't think we should be divided over that or the shape of the earth. I do think it's important that the earth be understood the exact way that it is and the way the word tells us, because the Father put that at the very beginning of the Bible, and it's to show you creation. He's the one that created it, and it's important that we understand how it was made, by who it was made. We don't have to really know exactly what it looks like. That's not going to get us into His kingdom. We will not know that until we go there, most likely, because it is so complex. This earth as a system is far more complex than we can imagine. If you've ever seen an ecosystem in a bottle, like the ones that I make with my students sometimes, those can recycle water and do all these cool things, and plants can grow and all of that. But Earth as an entire system is miraculous. The fact that the oceans purify themselves with the changing of the tides, and so many cool things happen to keep everyday life possible, with the sun, the greater light that He put up there that just is constant and it keeps passing by. We wake up, we see it, take a lot of it for granted. These things were put in motion by the most intelligent being ever, our Father. And it's cool that people are waking up and seeing the truth about creation. And as UAP said, it's almost like a spell has wore off. Like this spell is wearing off and people are just waking up. It's very powerful, very spiritual, and it's scaring the crap out of the ones who are doing everything they can to shut us up. So we need to do everything we can to not shut up and spread the good news, spread the truth. Be kind. I keep seeing online and social media people sharing stuff that is insulting towards the opposition. They need to see that we have found something that might make us seem crazy, but we need to show them that we're not, and that the Father is right, and that His Son will return very soon. We need to make sure everyone is ready. And destroying false science at the rate that we are is helping, but we need to share that love. That's very important. I thank you all for your support and everything that you do. Wouldn't be here if the Father didn't want me to share things with you guys, and for you guys to share things with me that are really opening my eyes. I'm learning a lot. Hopefully you are too. You guys are a beloved creation of the Most High, and it's time that you get what you don't deserve.